How long should you give a book, a movie, a series, etc., before you give up on it? How much of a try do you give? Rewind the clock to like 2010, and the standard advice, the standard policy, you still hear people say this today, is particularly in anime, the 3 episode rule. You're supposed to watch the first 3 episodes of an anime so you can get a full taste for it. Unfortunately, I think that advice came when like there was like half as many anime shows, and the quality was simply worse in 2010. I do think some of the best shows to come out ever came out in the kind of that golden period, but there was like one good series per season basically, and you had to figure out which one that was. Nowadays, we're spoiled for choice. I don't care what genre you're in, what your preferences are. There are bangers coming out every season with anime. It's blowing Hollywood out of the water if you're not aware. Usually, you can tell almost immediately whether they're good or bad or worth your time or if it'll be interesting to you. Except this one, for what I'm talking about. Because I'm going to recommend that you all give Zom 100 a try. It's really good. I'll talk more about it in a sec. But you have to give it at least like 16 minutes. The way the story is set up is to exalt in freedom and living life and pursuing friendship and fun and adventure and so on. In comparison to the horrible exploitative drudgery of corporate work. This story follows the main character who starts the story as a broken drone of a black company where he has no free time, he has no money, he has no benefits, he has no sanity, and he's one step away from taking his own life, which is a serious problem over in Japan and South Korea and probably China. Less so in America, because a lot of Americans will just tell their company to screw off before it gets that bad. But it's a real thing. People do get abused by their work, and it can really screw you up. And that is where the story kicks in, is rejecting that horrible, lifeless trap, and go and live life. Go have fun. Zom 100 is a zombie apocalypse story where the end of the world is the best thing that's ever happened to him. And it's a ton of fun. It is an absolute blast. Like, the full title is Zom 100 Bucket List of the Dead, and that's the premise, is when he realizes he doesn't have to go into work tomorrow, first thing he does is he makes after like some stuff with his crush at the office and cleaning up those loose ends with her, he gets a notebook, he gets a pen, and he writes down 100 things he wants to do. And then he just starts working down that list. He just starts checking things off left and right. That is the structure of the story, is doing all the things he wants to do and having fun doing it and so on. And that's great. You really don't need me to pitch it. If you just pull it up and give it a try and give it to like the 16-minute mark, because like the first 14 minutes are some of the dreariest, most soul-crushing, horribly dry, and arguably boring anime that you're going to see. It opens as terrible as his job is. And that is done so that you can feel the difference of, oh, I don't have to go into work tomorrow. I'm free. I can go live my life. By bringing you, the viewer, down to the depths that he is in, you can then be lifted up. And you can't just start with the fun, because it won't feel authentic, it won't feel engaging, you won't feel that sympathy with a character if it just starts with the antics, the running around, the jumping and running away from zombies and stealing things from convenience stores and drinking all night, playing video games and so on. It just wouldn't work without first establishing what he's coming out of, and that simply takes time. This is why I don't like the idea that people have of judging novels by their first sentence, by the first paragraph. How good is that first page? When do you set that hook? you have to hook that reader with the what can be read from the look ahead and on Amazon. And I think that's ridiculous. And it's some kind of product of internet advice gone wrong, basically, because people act like the first page is people's first encounter with a story, which it simply isn't. If you judged Zom 100 by like the first 12 minutes until the episode break, you drop it. You wouldn't do it. But the thing is that you've presumably seen the trailer. You've seen the cover art. You can tell that this is not a horrible corporate, one step from unaliving yourself. They are clearly having fun. The anime is fun and funny, and it's an adventure. And it just doesn't start there. Not all stories can start already in the hook. For instance, last season, what I thought was the best anime of the season was Oshi no Ko, which actually starts with like a feature-length film for our first episode. I went into it blind. I had no expectations except that people said it was amazing. At the end of the episode, you finally get the hook. You finally realize that in a lot of ways it is a murder mystery. Because you finally figure out who got killed, well, other than the main character getting off at like the very beginning. But you actually like understand the trajectory only at the end of like an hour and 10 minutes of animation. That is when it suddenly makes sense. It's great. It is gripping and engaging all the way until then, and it spends all that time making you like all the characters so that when the one gets killed off, you suddenly are grabbed and you want to see justice. It gets you because of that setup, because of all that time where it's basically a different genre. That is what allows for the emotional depth of the rest of the story and the rest of the hook. And it simply takes time. It's set up. That is why the inciting incident in the hero's journey is not necessarily the start of the story. If you pull up like Joseph Campbell's the Monomyth stuff, it is actually rather explicit in most stories that you do start with situation normal. You establish the world as is so that the inciting incident makes sense. And then there's the call to action, the refusal, the call to mentors, the journey into the unknown, the belly of the whale, death and rebirth and growth, and defeating the dragon, then returning to normal is part of the hero's journey. Returning to the normal condition, improved with the medicine, with the power, with the knowledge, or whatever. And going back to the beginning, to the way things were, but now changed prior to the inciting incident, is what makes the story feel complete. So please do not judge a story by the first few frames, the first few minutes. Sometimes some stories just need more time. And Zom 100 is a ton of fun. And for the record, this is written by Haro Aso, who you may know from their other work, Alice in Borderland, a completely different genre. I think the fun of Zom 100 actually has been executed a bit better, but I think Alice in Borderland is a wonderful manga. Kind of an iffy live action adaptation. But right now we're getting an anime by a studio called Bug Films, and I pulled them up and didn't see anything that they were really responsible for. This seems to be their first big project on their own, because they've supported things like The Ancient Magus' Bride and Komi-san Can't Communicate, and those were good, but they were like a second key animator studio, not the lead studio. But hey, I guess anime is a booming industry over there, and honestly, I think the actual raw animation quality in the last few years is unbelievably good. Yeah, they're taking some shortcuts with CG, and maybe I'll talk about that in the future, about the trade-offs of cost of production, basically. But I highly recommend Zom 100. Go give it a try. There's only one episode out right now. Obviously, I've got the first 8 volumes here, but I'm not planning to reread them. I want to re-experience the story visually. I actually don't remember all the plot beats right now as I'm recording this video, and that's because I don't want to. I want to get the re-experience in a slightly different medium. because, Japan does actually pretty good at adapting the story and keeping it true to the material, even when you go from, like, prose to manga to animation. But you necessarily will get some different experiences. The action will work differently. The timing gags. I think Konosuba is actually a good example of a series that is distinctly improved for being in a live animation form. Because the humor and the gag humor and the visual humor and the character interactions just work better when they're done live with, like, actual people. There's some jankiness with the prose and Konosuba that I think works better in anime, and I'll make a video about that in the future. But for now, I highly recommend you give this a try if you're looking for anime to watch this season. Till then, please drop a like, a subscribe, tell your friends. Check out some of my stuff if you want, but I'm here being a weeb right now, so until next time, cheers.